Last bit of news story is Stellar Blade. So Stellar Blade, I'm not doing a review of it. Maybe once it kind of maybe drops in price a little bit, I think I might pick it up. Might kind of get it there. You think when it drops in price, you might also pick it up?
I'd pick it up when it drops in price. I'd be willing to pick it up for a bit cheaper. I think 70 seems a little much for this, but I don't know, 20, $30 maybe. I could see at least I could see it around there.
Mm, okay. Um, and this is from Shift Up here, getting great reviews, getting rave reviews here. I think it's 80% on Metacritic there from critics, and then 90 something percent there from fans who are really playing this. Hearing the action is pretty good. The setting is pretty good. I hear the character, the lead here, Eve, is kind of dull. Really doesn't really have much of a personality. Maybe not like you'd see something like in Bayonetta there, has much, really, really a lot of personality, really a lot of flair to her. So that's what I've heard there much about it. Um, what have you heard? What were some of your things you heard about
I mean, I'd say that's pretty much what I've heard. Although I also feel like I've seen a lot of like sevens in the reviews too. I mean, obviously the Metacritic is closer to 80, but I've also seen some sevens. I played the demo, and that's kind of where I was. Boring character, good combat, pretty looking game, good world, felt good to play. Bland story, bland character. I appreciate too that you mentioned Bayonetta having a lot of personality, because part of what makes Bayonetta work, being so hypersexualized, is like everything in Bayonetta is super sexy. Like there's a male character shows up, he's wearing a trench coat with no shirt. Right, like everything is very over the top here. One thing I definitely would like to point out with Stellar Blade is that every time any other character shows up other than Eve, like some of these guys that she's like getting missions from, they're wearing full head to toe like combat
it?
gear, not even a little bit of skin showing outside of their face. And I'm like, that's part of I think the contrast of that is part of where it comes across as shameless. Whereas again in Bayonetta, it's like the male characters are also kind of over the top and sexualized too, and so it just seems like everything in that world is.
Yeah. So that's kind of coming down to what the controversy is. So even before this game came out, there was controversy surrounding it, about the character of Eve and Stellar Blade. As far as I don't think anybody was saying the character was overly sexualized all that much. I think you said you saw a couple of things saying that.
I saw a few things saying that, but it was relatively small, right? Like it was like making it sound like there was some crusade against the game for being sexy is blowing it out of proportion so much. But I mean, I'll still say that I did see some people that were mad that it existed at all. I did see some of that reaction.
Yeah. And then that created kind of like this culture war type backlash to it. People on one side or the other talking about it and saying that, the industry, the video game industry, or people are against hot women in video games. Even I've seen some people say they're racist against Asian people there because she's a attractive Asian woman there. And the latest thing, now that the game is out, there's a new controversy there about it, and this in terms of censorship. So this is from Forbes here that details a lot of what's been going on here. So it says Celebrate's new censorship controversy is extremely bizarre. Celebrate has been
Got
at
that
the
right.
center of the culture war practically since it was announced. One side heralding as a pinnacle of non-woke game design featuring a scantily clad female lead, contrasted with others in the industry questioning her design. But now that the game is released, well liked by players and well received by critics, which was another thing they were trying to say, that people who were saying that critics were going to trash it for its design and the way it's actually critics end up praising it. So they couldn't fall back on the critics were going to hate it because that's what their whole thing they were going to say is like, well, if the critics were going to give it a bad review, it was because they didn't like the hot women. And then they said that about IGN, but IGN gave it a 7.
Yeah.
So which is a decent score. 7 is a good score. It's
Yeah,
not
it's cool.
it's
So if
not
you if
bad.
you look at their scale, 7 equals good. Six is like even six is decent. It's not until you get to like five and below where it's like that's like a bad score.
Yeah. And then somebody said, well, if it was some 200-pound girl, Tumblr chick or whatever, then they would have gave it like an 8 or a 9. And then I think
That's just reaching so hard.
and then I asked, like, when has that ever been done? When has there ever been a 200-pound female character lead in a video game there? I don't know. I asked the person, I still haven't gotten a response. Uh,
Yeah, I
I
can't
don't
think of one.
I don't know when that's been a thing. If somebody let me know when there been a 200-pound female lead in a video game there that somebody's given a 10 out of 10 or a 9 or an 8, let me know in the comments below there. But, yeah, so game design featuring a scantily clad female lead contrasts with others in the industry questioning her design. But now the game is released, well liked by players and well received by critics. The same group is now saying that in some instances, Stellar Blade's lead is still not scantily clad enough. Namely, they are accusing developers Shift Up of censoring aspects of the game, including specific costume, and some are blaming PlayStation. This is all pretty bizarre, but here's a breakdown of what's going on. So I like they give bullet points. Very nice there. That helps you follow along. So they give an example. Says a couple of the game's dozens of outfits for Eve were seemingly changed in minor ways from the patch-free disc version of the game to final release. This was not the version reviewers had, as they that was already patched once. But if you forego all patches, these old costumes can be seen on the disc here. So this is what's brought up right here. So these are a lot of the old. So this is where it looked before it got censored, right? So you see little bit more kind of cleavage that you see here, a little bit more kind of in the hip areas.
Oh,
That's it's a little bit more exposed. And then the patch is right here. So you see that it's basically just kind of she has a seems like a shirt underneath there, a little bit that's covering it. And then also the kind of swimsuit, the bunny costume here that she's wearing. It's a little bit more clothing right down in her hips there, as you see there. So
and
that's
the camel toe has been removed, which seems to be what incensed some of these incels the most.
The Camatel, yeah, you see that that's kind of been removed there. Um, and then also the article goes on to say, let me pull it back up here. Uh, there's one of the main costume in question, a bunny style swimsuit, which added a tiny bit of lace on the chest and a small amount of coverage in the hips. Another costume had a bit of netting added to the chest area. A couple of more may or may not have barely visible differences, but these are one main ones repeatedly brought up. From outside perspective, it's odd players could what's it say? Oh, on this is such a degree, given that those outfits are still enormously revealing, and there are dozens or two other outfits just as revealing, if not more so, in the same regions where those costumes were censored. But the counterclaim is that any amount of changes like this should be considered censorship and should be protested vehemently. And you have like this one person right here, um, who says, now that we have direct confirmation that it was a redesign, watch the narrative shift Sony forced him to do slash say that people love to shout about respect the dev's vision until the vision is something that they isn't something they personally agree with here. Um, so you have that going on. So what's kind of your take on the situation so far with this?
Well, one thing I want to add to the last thing that you were reading there, I was listening to the Rage Select podcast just yesterday, and they were talking about this a little bit, and specifically made note of the fact that the game developer he specifically made those changes to the costumes himself, like personally, like I want to make these changes, like let's I'm going to do this little difference or whatever. Uh, I mean, it's barely different though. Like it's barely different. How upset can you possibly get over some camel toe? Like I truly don't understand. You realize how much porn there is on the internet? If you're not getting enough from your video games, I got news for you. There's a whole internet out there, tons of websites that's very easily available. I don't understand why there is such a desire to have that in your video game. And then I mean I'll also say I guess in terms of the censorship, and maybe you could the only argument that maybe I could make against those changes is they're still so revealing. Why make the change? But like it's such a minor little thing. Like it's the guy that made it wanted to make a few changes. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. It it feels like people that just need a conflict. They need to attach themselves to something to be upset about, because they were the ones that championing this, right, for months. It's been what, 6 months of this game, and I've heard nothing but this is how all women should look in video games. This is this is going to show the wokesters how it's done. And as soon as the game comes out, and then everybody's like, oh, actually, you know what, it is good after all. We weren't sure, but it turned out well. Now those people championing it hate it because they didn't get their camel toe. I don't know, man. This has been one of the weirdest things I've ever watched play out.
Um, so so you said so Shift Up, they're the ones you see that they're the ones that said that's the final costume they wanted to show is the one with more of the lace there, a little bit more of the
Yeah,
extra clothing there, as you see, and
and
then
it's fairly different. It's just like a tiny little bit. It's like I don't know.
yeah, and I've seen some people say that, it's the principle of the matter, the censorship, and they're against censorship. There's a campaign called Free Stellar Blade. I think the person heading up this campaign is, the person who's in charge of Mark Kern there. I don't know if you know him. Um,
Uh, I've heard the name, but I couldn't tell you. I
he
couldn't tell
was
you the story.
a CEO and designer, former team lead of OG World of Warcraft. That's his thing. He was also producer of Diablo
Oh, okay.
2, StarCraft, Chrono Trigger. They're, done various stuff like that. So he's I think the main one leading this campaign of Freestyle, but he has a campaign right now, change.org, that he has. This is the petition right here that people can sign, and then it's up to 81,188 signatures so far. The goal is 150,000, is the goal there. And then so he has a
Yeah.
statement here. He said, "Stellar Blade is a phenomenal new game that just launched on PlayStation 5 worldwide, but it has a problem. The content has been censored from the original trailer version posted by Sony. We as gamers want this content back. We relied on it. We made it the number one pre-order worldwide because of it, and this is the true game we want. Stellar Blade is more than a game. It has become a cultural beacon for freedom of expression in a time where game publishers like Sony are censoring games more than ever. Stellar Blade was a breath of fresh air, and gamer rallied behind it because it meant things were changing, getting better, and the voice of creative freedom ringing loud and clear. But for reasons unknown, the game was censored. Changes were made. What we received after our good faith purchase was not the same as advertised. We believe in the game, we believe in Shift Up, and we are asking to get the game we believed in. Revert the censorship changes, patch the game, and you will find that even more gamers will join you and support you. All gamers can help by signing this petition. It will be printed in Korea and delivered in Korea to Shift Up offices, and physically printed and delivered to Sony PlayStation North American offices. Spread this petition on social media with the free Stellar Blade hashtag there. So he has that. And there's been money that has been raised for this as well. This is part of his post there. Let me share my screen right here. So people have raised so far 36,768 have contributed to the petition there with this. And this was
That's going to
in
cover like a week worth of lawyers' fees.
Yeah, I was kinda trying to figure out, what the money I guess is to hire a lawyer because 'cause I've seen some people talk about maybe suing them for censorship.
I believe they want to do it. They want to do a class action lawsuit, which if it actually happens, I can only hope it's titled "The People's Camel Toe" versus Sony Entertainment.
Okay, so he says right here, so he says, somebody asked, "What will happen with the money?" And this is April 30th, by the way, so the extra contribution may have increased since then. We're doing this in, May 6th right here, where we're recording this. But he says, "The petition does not ask for money. These are people paying change.org to boost the petition. I did not receive any
Oh,
of the funds. Over 900,000 views were purchased." Yeah. Okay, and then somebody responded, "Well, I never claimed you received the money. I was simply curious to know what would it be used and how it works." There. So I guess it isn't towards a lawyer or anything. It's towards just to boosting the petition, I guess. Just for that purpose there.
still a waste of money.
And there are people who like you'll see actual testimonials, people who did video of those as well. I'll pull that up here in a minute though. So do you think like it is a form of censorship to have her with the lace, in the clothing there.
I mean, in like the most literal possible interpretation of the word. I mean, I guess maybe, but again, I what I was listening to yesterday said that the Shift Up studio themselves made these changes and wanted to present the costumes that way. And if that's the case, then it's not. I mean, even in that most minor, like technically it counts way, even then it wouldn't if that's truly something that they made the decision to do. And also, like, let's also just make this clear: this game's published by Sony. Sony helped fund it, right? Sony has their name on it. It is partially theirs. If they ask for a change, they have every right to do that, right? If Sony says we don't want to publish a game with camel toe on our platform that we're funding and paying for, that's perfectly reasonable for them to make that request.
Yeah. So here's some testimonials of people who decided why they decided to sign the petition and why they decided to possibly even give money to it. Right.
Oh no.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey, and I think this petition needs to come through to have all of the creators who
These uncensored Stellar Blade games would be fun that way. Oh boy.
Because it doesn't appeal, because it appeals to the male gaze. They really need to stop using that. Sony, you need to make Shift Up cook.
So that's some little bit of testimonials there. There's some other videos I can pull up there. So it's kind of people that wasn't me skipping through the video. That was somebody who was actually screen recording it there uh, during a little bit of it. Uh, so why do you think that this is such a passionate cause? You explain a little bit. You just think they just have to have a cause to fight for there? You think just something to
I think
do?
that at least plays a factor. I mean, I think they're bored. I think they I mean, it's you have two potential routes you could go. You could have it's people that have no real problems, and so they need to find a problem, or their life, maybe their life is full of problems, and this is just the one thing they feel like they might be able to have some sort of win over, because yeah, nothing else is going right. I don't know which one of those two routes, all these people are necessarily going down, but I feel like it's going to be one of those two explanations. And I mean, it just I don't know. It's just that culture war thing again, where it's something that is either, if it is a problem, it's innocuous at the most, or more likely, it's not a problem at all. And people just, for some reason, they just need to attach themselves to these things because real problems, people that are starving or dying in other countries, that's too difficult to solve. So let's not pay attention to that. Let's not raise a bunch of money to, send food to people that can't eat. Let's, boost a petition to get our camel toe back because that's easy to think about and rationalize. I think it's just it's intellectual laziness at its peak.
So here's some more testimonials right here.
This petition is not only to free Stellar Blade, but to send a clear message to Sony, Nintendo, and the rest of the publishers in the gaming industry that we players will not tolerate any form of censorship moving forward. Thank you.
On the Nintendo eStore, you can pull up the front page, and there's I kid you not, at least a couple months ago, a game called Hentai Story on the front page of the Nintendo digital storefront. So I don't think they're censoring.
Oh, wow.
I'm really disappointed because as a grown man, I really expected to have at least some
At least he's hiding his face. At least he's got kind of the foresight to do that. Like just in case. At least he's got that.
count, some type of responsibility to look after myself and do what I want in the comforts of my own home. Yeah, that's it. This is bullshit.
Was it? I mean, what do you think he meant in the comforts of my own home? What do you? I mean,
I assume he's talking about jerking off, and you can.
like,
Well, who's
and
stopping you?
and the comfort. I don't think anybody stopped from enjoying it from the comforts of your own home there. But let's see what else.
Apparently, if you start jerking off in your own house, the woke mom's going to kick your door down and pull your dick out of your own hands.
Hey Sony, I want you to take off the censor off the games Stellar Blade because I'm looking forward to play this game as well. Because my game won't be here until Wednesday from the mail, and I want things to change and what's going on around the world and stuff. And sign a petition, all right, and stuff. All right, bye.
That guy
Okay.
talks like people who don't use commas when they type.
uh, yeah. I mean, kind of not the best sign off there. He's like, all right, and stuff, and all right, by there. But so his thing was that he's getting the disc. But so if you get the disc, right, you have the uncensored version there. If you have,
Yeah, you basically just don't download the patch
yeah.
of the game.
So he has that. So I think if you have the disc, you're fine there. If that's truly what he wants. And then one last one right here.
Hello, my name is Jeremy, and I am signing the Stellar Blade petition.
So why you sound like he got a gun to his head, man? It's like somebody's like right behind him. Like, bro,
This is a hostage video.
bro, this is bro, relax.
Because I too am tired of how Sony is constantly censoring games left and right, back and forth for absolutely no reason.
What other games can you name off the top of your that Sony is censored?
I can't name a single one.
Okay.
I have no idea. You can in Baldur's Gate 3, you can have sex with a bear. Like, what are these people talking about?
And people did bring up Baldur's Gate as far as like some people say, okay, you complain about the sexiness in Baldur's Gate. I mean, you complained about it in Stellar Blade, but people enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3 and like how characters are very sexual there and people thirsting after those characters. But it's like you're supposed to shame us for thirsting after Stellar Blade. It doesn't seem fair. They did bring that up as a
Well,
little bit.
and I'll totally say there is some hypocrisy because the people, again, relatively small, it's being blown out of proportion, but the people who were mad that Stellar Blade was sexy were some of the same people that thought it was great how horny Baldur's Gate 3 was. So there's a little hypocrisy there. But again, it's just being blown out of proportion so much. Like it's not that many people making that statement. And the people that are doing it, they don't have any power or control over these things in the first place. They're just some random people complaining. Like there's no reason to take that opinion that seriously.
Yeah. And so yeah, there was a little bit. That's a little bit of hypocrisy, but also people said that if Sony really was censoring things and really there was this cancellation of like the sexualization of women or sexiness in video games, because people say the same thing about movies and shows too, like they're making women ugly or everybody's ugly in movies and shows now, and everything like that. Then they say if that was the case, well, Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot of very sexy characters in it, and that was
Yeah,
and
tons of them.
and then they'll bring up like the same screenshot of the same female characters in video games that are like mid sentence. Like they'll bring up I don't know if you've seen that photo, like the character in Mortal Kombat 1, Tanya. They'll bring up her.
Oh, yeah, that character is like super sexy in that game. They're just picking a screenshot where she's in the middle of a sentence, and so she's making a little bit of a weird face if you pause it at the right moment. Like, yeah, I mean, the Mortal Kombat one was a whole other big thing where they were talking about that being censored and the characters weren't sexy and the women all looked like men. Like the characters in that game are super sexualized still. Like
Katana.
yeah, Katana, Melina, Tanya was super sexualized. Chameleon, uh, yeah, all of them are.
Yeah.
All of them are.
They bring up her. They bring up the woman from Fable. They bring up
Well, okay, Fable. Fable is a weird example to use because everyone's a little ugly in Fable. It's on purpose. It's an exaggerated art style. It's like making fun of like middle-aged like British fantasy, and so everybody's like a little weird looking. And so but that's like a uniform art style that applies to the entire Fable franchise. So that's a terrible example to use for that.
yeah. So this is the character they bring up. Sometimes they'll bring up
Yeah.
Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn. There.
He just looks like a normal person to me.
And then sometimes they'll also like kind of exaggerate the photos there sometimes with it.
Sure.
Um,
Photoshop them to make them look worse than they are.
Mary Jane in the recent game, they say how she changed from the first Spider-Man game to the other to Spider-Man 2. They
She
talk
just
about,
looks older to me.
yeah, just looks a little bit older. I would say there as well. but also, yeah, they'll kind of bring up those characters, but also ignore, like you mentioned, female characters like Melina, Katana,
Look at
all the
Sindel's cleavage.
you
Like,
know Sindel there. Even in the Street Fighter game, you had Cammy who looked really good, and Chun Li has always looked really good there in the recent
oh
games
yeah.
there. That looks really good. They'll ignore all of those and focus on maybe some of these examples, but it's usually the same. And then even with this one, like Tifa from Final Fantasy there, Tifa from
Oh
Final
yeah.
Fantasy. Um,
Exposed midriff for 100 hours. That's not good enough, I guess.
yeah. But let's go back to the other testimonial here, the last one.
Am tired of how Sony is constantly censoring games left and right, back and forth, for absolutely no reason whatsoever to fit some stupid, worthless, pointless agenda. Stellar Blade is definitely a breath of fresh air, and it needs to stay that way. Thank you.
Yeah.
Somebody's forcing him to read that. Like,
Yeah.
it looks like a hostage video.
Yeah, somebody's holding up. Yeah, I mean, wow, that was. I mean, he did do that with conviction. I will say he had a lot of conviction saying that.
The
Um,
conviction of someone who's got a gun to their head.
Ulysses says, funny that these guys obsess over Camito censorship, but no mention, say, regional censorship of foreign games. Tells you what these guys really care about. He also says, why aren't these guys demanding Warfare Reloaded to be sold on Steam? All right, no Camito in a Russian war game. He also says some of these people lusting after Stellar Blade complained BG3 was too sexualized too, and the women weren't hot enough.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just hypocrisy on just completely through and through with that.
And I will say they do have stuff that does kind of feed into their narrative. So have you heard about IGN France? Have you heard about that? What happened with them?
No,
So IGN
no.
France, they did a preview of the game there, and they had a comment there that angered them a lot. So this was what it was. So it says the original text of the Stellar Blade preview contained comments that were out of place. While it was never our intention to disrespect Shift Up or any of the employees or their work, we recognize that the phrase taken in its literal sense was inappropriate and we regret it. So they had to do an apology.
Of that.
Um, Oh, sorry. Let me see if I can pull up actually the quote there from the IGN France. So they basically said that they thought the character was too hot, or like it seemed like the developers had never seen a real woman before, based on the dimensions of the way that the character looked there. So let me make sure I get the exact wording of that to just fully make sure there. I got it what it was there. But yeah, so you did have that kind of going on. And this is the model is a real person there. It's a Korean model that they use. Now they actually did alter some of her appearance there because in the more you can tell the way they do it, like more of the hips and kind of areas there. So this is actually let me bring it up real quick. The model here. Do. Let me make sure there. Right here. Have you seen the model before?
I've seen at least. I think I've seen that video before. Yeah,
Okay, so you
where
could
she's
tell.
posing for the scanning.
Yeah, so you can tell they altered some of the stuff with her body here with this, possibly like
Yeah, it's definitely not 1-to-1.
yeah, it's not one to one there. Um, do you think that that's an issue at all, altering the body there? Do you think if they complain about the censorship of like the clothing there, they should also kind of maybe complain about that of like the altering of the body of her?
If they were going to be consistent, yes, but that's a lot to ask from some of these people. I mean, ultimately, if you want to make your horny anime game, I don't think and you shouldn't be allowed to. Um, but like the idea that some people not liking it or thinking that it's over the top and unnecessary, like you can't have a problem with people having that opinion, right? Like as long as like the game's allowed to exist, right? What's so bad about one review say giving their opinion about it being overly sexualized?
Yeah. So this was IGN France right here. So they said this little blurb right here says success is not new, and other games have chosen to highlight the strengths of their female characters, but where Bayonetta stands out with an iconic character design, or 2B from Near Automata inspires a entire generation of cosplayers, E from Stellar Blade is just bland, a doll sexualized by someone who has never seen a woman. there. And it turns out, so it, is a real woman, and it's the creator's wife and team artist here. And then you also see her here as well there in this photo. What do you think about that comment there?
I mean, I can see how maybe that model might find it maybe slightly insulting, but again, they did alter her body proportions to actually make the character, so it's not one to one, like we said. Um, I mean, I think it's maybe a little silly to care so much that there's this like hypersexualized thing that exists. Is it hurting anybody? I don't really think so, but again, that's just one random review. Like if that's your job is to give reviews and that's just what your opinion is it really such a big deal for one review out there to think, hey, this is too much? I didn't like it because I thought it was too much. Like, is that, I don't know, is that really a controversy? Should that really be a controversy?
Yeah, and they did kind of somewhat echo a lot of stuff there of what people saying, like, she is very bland as a character, not very interesting. That did echo some of the other things that they said, like, compared to Bayonetta 2B from Near, yeah, not as good there. Ulysses said if they didn't alter proportions with those weird picky guys, still think she was hot. I
That's a
still think
great
she's.
question.
I mean, I still think she's still pretty attractive, even if they didn't alter her proportions, as you see there.
I mean, I agree, but would these guys that are complaining about the costume censorship, would they still think so?
Um, I mean, sometimes there's a Venn diagram of these dudes and fetishization of Asian women, so that's a big Venn diagram there too,
That's true.
as well.
That's
So
true.
they might also still think she would be attractive, even though she is still very pretty. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't.
objectively, a
Yeah,
very
she is.
good-looking woman.
So I don't think you would have to, really did much altering, but they did. They did some altering there with her body there, as they do sometimes with a lot of models and scans and everything like that. But it is something they also do complain about if they think that the character is ugly, they do complain, like, "Look at the model here, and then look at the other model, the video game models, they altered her to look a different way." They do complain about that there, in that way. Um,
Okay.
I mean, overall, I mean, I think the Forbes article kinda just basically explains it's just bizarre. It's just kinda I mean, I think that's the
It's
best
really
word,
weird.
kinda the best word for it there. It's just something that's like, it's just little changes there. I mean, signing this petition, I guess if you think it's gonna make a change, and if they do it, then sure, I guess. I mean, if that's what you really wanna support and do, um,
It's what you want to spend $36,000 on.
if you wanna send money to even boost it, I guess. I mean, I don't think, can you get that money back, if, like, something happens? I don't think, can you get it back?
I don't think so. It'd be
I
one
just
thing if you were putting it into like to like file a suit or something. That might be different. But if it's just to boost the attention that the petition is getting, I don't think there's any sort of yeah, I don't think there's any sort of recourse.
Yeah. So, I mean, these people really believe in it that hard, if that's what you really wanna do. Um,
It
uh
almost makes you want to play the game despite.
Yeah, I mean, they're going with, it's the principle of the matter. The game was advertised as being uncensored. It got censored, then that's false advertising, and there's that thing. Like,
Yeah.
they're making like a kind of a moral argument about it there, which I think is okay. I mean, sure. I mean, but if the creators are saying shift up, if they're saying that's what they want to do, they wanted to change the costumes there, then that's what they kind of really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then somebody kind of brought up a point. They were like, well, I mean, isn't her just wearing clothes at all kind of censorship in a way? The
True.
I mean,
That's
that's
true. Good point. What
I
about
mean,
like sorry, my phone is there we go. Okay. I mean, yeah, like take it up with Adam and Eve, right? Like
because I don't
anything
think
outside of the garden.
is there a mode where she can be like completely naked?
I have seen there's a ton of alternate costumes which are even more skimpy than like these, and then like revealing than these like regular outfits that you see in the trailers. And there's one in particular, I'm sure you could
Is
probably easily find an image of it, but it's called like a skin suit.
this
I
one?
mean, it's basically
I think it's this, right?
is naked. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think this is. So let me bring up a photo here just to make sure. I'm doing some extra research here with this one. But yeah, so she has the skin suit there with it. Let me. So yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen this before. Yeah, it looks like yeah. So this one right here.
Yep,
Uh,
that's the one.
hold on. Let me scroll down to it a little bit more here. And she's got a lot of good outfits in the game. I will say. I mean, she's got a lot of really good outfits. So
It's a
this one
huge
is
selection.
yeah, huge selection here that you have. I've seen people try on some different ones. These are the kind of different collections when you can unlock some. There,
I think there's
very
one that gives her pants.
yeah. I mean, here she's fully covered. She's a bear. She's a teddy bear in this one.
Oh yeah,
Fully,
like that
fully.
South Park episode with Muhammad.
So yeah, I mean, I guess if that's the closest she gets to naked is just a skin suit. I mean, yeah. What you say? Yeah. I mean, her wearing clothes at all is kind of censorship in a way, though. I mean, which is kind of what they argue. Any final word on this?
These people are crazy, man. These
Ah,
people are crazy, and I don't know. I don't know why this just had to become the target of their obsession. But I feel like I've been hearing about this game for 5 years.
yeah. And yeah, there was just much conversation about this game. Like I said, before it even came out, and then I was like, okay, finally, when this game comes out, maybe that can people stop talking about it. And then there was also this that came out about it. Um, like I said, I'm interested to play it. When I saw the trailer, I was like, hey, I want another Bayonetta style game, and I've seen other people play it, and it looks fun to play. It looks really good, fun to play there. Um, I mean, in my terms on the sexualization of the character, there's nothing wrong with. I don't have anything wrong with sexy characters if they're just sexy just to be sexy, it's kinda boring, if that's the only reason. It seems like that's maybe the main complaint with her is that she's just sexy to be sexy. It's not like a situation like Bayonetta who has all this personality and she can do all these other different things there other than just being sexy, I think is the main thing. So yeah, I think that's kinda it there. But, I mean, I'd probably give this a review when it drops in price. I wouldn't mind checking it out, giving it a review there.
Yeah,
Uh
same.
yeah, I don't think there's a war on sexy women or anything like that. I don't think there's a yeah,
Not even a little bit.
yeah, so I don't think anything like that. So that was Stellar Blade talk there.